Well, it's John Black, Super Chemist. This is part one of the Fire Department DEI. And this guy is Mike Pertz. Uh, he's on YouTube if you want to watch his, the full thing or whatever.
That's important because in the fire service, your job could get you seriously injured or, God forbid, killed. I think recently Houston, I think there was 3 or 4 guys that got trapped in a flashover. That's really dangerous. If you're doing data entry at IBM, you're not going to get trapped in a flashover. And if you mess up something on a spreadsheet, nobody's going to die or be permanently disabled because of that. So one of the worst places you can introduce ideas about DEI is the fire service or any sort of job where people's lives and safety are at risk. It lowers the standards in general. There are countless numbers of firefighters out there that have reached out to me that have told me about their specific department lowering standards to get more women or to get people that are minorities. In other words, categorizing people based on whether or not they're men or women or the color of their skin. And so they will lower standards to get people that are lower on the hiring list in order to bring them in to raise their numbers up and surpass people that have tested higher or more capable or competent to do the job just because they want to raise their numbers and look good and put on all these DEI initiatives. That's a problem. Not only is that wildly demoralizing, and I'm sure there's legal questions there too, about whether or not that's even legal and to what degree. That's a dicey situation. But you're getting people in positions that aren't going to be the best people for when shit hits the fan, for when something goes wrong. And that's a recipe for disaster. And you'll talk about this here again in another second. But what do I mean when I say you have to be capable? I mean you have to be physically and mentally capable of doing the job. If you're not strong enough to pull a pre-connect of 1 3/4 hand line, if you're not physically capable of doing that, you should not have this job. If you're not physically capable of dragging a 200-pound man out of a house, you should not have this job because you are not physically able to do the things that you will inevitably come across. Now, a lot of people out there will say, well, 90%, 80% of fire department run volume now is EMS. And that's great, but the job of public safety and the job of firefighters is defined by the extremes, okay? Anybody can go pick grandma up off the floor, make sure she's okay, tuck her back in. Not everybody is going to be able to drag a 250-pound man out of a 500-degree building. That's very different. And you need to be able to do that because that's something that you will likely have to do at some point in your career. Now, also in line with capability is going, I also said physically and mentally capable. You're going to see difficult things. You're going to see traumatic things. You're going to see destruction. You're going to see death. You're going to see tragedy and sadness. That's a part of the job. And if you're the person that is very emotionally fragile and will just turn into a puddle of emotional goo and won't be able to continue to do your job after you see something like that, this job is not for you. That's okay. That doesn't make you less than. That doesn't make you bad. It's just a reality of the job. We need strong, resilient people that can handle those things and go back in there and get back in there and continue to do the hard work of helping people. If you're not competent, if you're not able to do the basic requisites of the job, you are not competent. And if you're not competent, you shouldn't be in the job, or at least not in the position, and you should have the opportunity to remedy that. But if you can't, or you won't, or you don't remedy that, you shouldn't have the job anymore. Imagine an accountant that doesn't know how to add or subtract. You wouldn't go to that accountant, or go to a lawyer that doesn't know how to read. People want capable and competent people to do the work for them. They don't care what color they are. They don't care whether they're a man or a woman. When you call 911, you expect that someone is going to show up that's going to be capable of doing the job and competent at doing the job. And then the last part, in perspective, and all that in mind, let's talk about DEI and the problem with it. Now, one of the things I really dislike about DEI is the framing of DEI in general. It speaks in empty platitudes, meaning if you don't know what DEI is, DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are the 3 pillars of DEI. But what DEI proponents rarely ever answer is, what specifically do you mean by diversity? What specifically do you mean by inclusivity? That's important because the way it's framed is if you raise your hand and say, hey, wait a minute, what do you mean by this diversity? I don't know if I agree with this whole idea of inclusivity. What do you mean by that? You're immediately castigated as some sort of bigot or something like that for asking a question and just saying like, well, wait a minute, I don't know if I agree with the sentiment that you're saying right now, or I don't know if I'm into the lifestyle that you're into. You do you, but I don't want to have to celebrate it too. So let's talk about the first thing about diversity. First, you'll hear a lot of people in the fire service experts or fire service leaders, and boy do I use those terms loosely, talk about how a fire department needs to reflect the way the community around them looks. And first of all, I couldn't disagree with that argument more. Because, as I said before, what nobody cares about when they call 911 is what you look like, or whether you're a man or a woman, or what religion you follow, or what you believe, or what your political beliefs are. What they care about is that you are going to be able to help them in their time of need, period. People care as much about the racial makeup of the fire department as much as they care about the racial makeup of the service department. Nobody cares what color the guy or the girl is that picks up your trash. All they care about is that the trash gets picked up on a regular basis. And it's the same thing with the fire service. Now, there's a lot of activists and people online that will tell you that that's not the truth, but nobody ever calls 911 and thinks, man, I really hope that the person that shows up isn't a black guy or a white guy or a black woman. Nobody cares. What they need to know is that you're going to do the job to the best of your abilities and take care of them. Now, there's this other argument floating around in the fire service leader world where they'll talk about a fire department does better when it looks like the community that they serve. In other words, it's kind of like a soft call for we need to prioritize, we need to hire a certain number of black people or Asian people or Hispanic people or white people based on the demographics of the city that we're in. And I couldn't disagree with that more. First of all, because, again, you're prioritizing the hiring of people not based on merit, but based on immutable characteristics, things that they can't control and things that have no bearing on their ability to do the job. But also the fact that saying that means that if you have a large department that has several stations in different districts throughout the city and there's different demographics, that means all of your white firefighters are going to go to the white neighborhoods, and your black firefighters are going to go to the black neighborhoods, and your Hispanic firefighters are going to go to the Hispanic neighborhoods, because we need to look like the districts and the communities that we serve. And that is a segregated fire service, and that's a bad idea. We don't want a segregated fire service. We got rid of this a long, long time ago. What we need to do is prioritize being capable, competent, and having good character, regardless of the color of your skin, or whether you're a man or woman, gay, straight, Christian, atheist. It doesn't matter.
It's just like with BIPOC. I did a video, what is BIPOC? You know, it's just segregation. It's a sign. BIPOC is just a sign you put in your window saying no whites. Everyone else can come except for whites. Yeah, it's not segregation, though.
That's not the point of the job. So that's diversity. Equity. Now, to normal people like you or I, who hear the term equity and don't spend their lives in the safety of the halls of academia, equity and equality, they're kind of 6 in one, half dozen in the other. But proponents of DEI and equity will be the first to tell you that equity is not the same as equality, and the goal should be equity, not equality. When you and I think of equality, we think of, hey, we're going to be hiring, we're going to generate a new list for new firefighters, and everybody is welcome to come take the list. Here's the requirements if you want to work here. We don't care if you're black or white or Hispanic. We don't care what color you are. We don't care whether you're a man or a woman. Here's the requirements to do the job. Come on out. That's equality. Everybody has the opportunity to put their best foot forward and get hired. What equity means is picking and choosing winners based on certain immutable characteristics, chief amongst them the color of your skin and whether you're a man or a woman. And again, we've talked about this ad nauseum at this point. That's a problem because you're not prioritizing merit in a job.
See, and the thing is it would still be bad if they, because this is all racist, it would still be bad if they just were racist about it. But they're not just being racist, they're picking the minorities that they pick they're lowering the bar, so they are not qualified to be firefighters or police or armed forces or any other job like that. You know, you saw with Trump. You know, you got a 5-foot woman in there. When he's getting shot in the head, all the men surround him, and all you see is this big opening above this woman. She is not qualified, but they lower the bar because they don't care if your daughter dies in a fire. All they care about is, can this adult woman feel good about herself being a leader, a fireman? Oh, I'm a fireman. I'm a leader. If she was a real leader, she wouldn't go. You're a traitor. If you were a fireman, okay, and you're female, and you haven't passed the test, all the tests, physical and otherwise, for the fire department, the same test as the men, then you are a traitor to this country. You do not, you do not, you're not qualified. You know you're not qualified. Someone's gonna die sooner or later, and you don't care that some little 5-year-old girl is gonna die because you took 10 minutes to get the 200-man guy out, and then you go back in and you see the little girl, but now it's too late because you took so much time on that 200-pound guy that you couldn't get out.
A job where you could easily get killed or permanently injured. So equity is a terrible idea. And it's based in this false compassion by these activists and these academics that the idea that because there was discrimination in the past, and there was, nobody's arguing that there wasn't, but every reasonable person is saying that was wrong and that was bad, we shouldn't do that. What we should do is make it fair for everyone, unilaterally across the board. Hire people based on merit, not on the color of their skin. But because there were these bad things in the past, what we need to do now is we need to give a leg up to certain groups of people. And going forward, you are going to continue to see that. And you are going to continue to see more firefighters and more people in the public sphere get hurt because of this prioritizing of people for things other than merit. And then last is inclusion. Now, what I really dislike about the idea of inclusion is the way it's, again, like I said earlier, the way it's framed.
It's never about inclusion. It's always about dividing us. Otherwise, I mean, you could see, they always want to put us in different boxes. That's not called inclusion. That's called division. When you put everyone into a whole bunch of different boxes, that's called division. Like if you put like the whole country in one box, the American race, that's one box under one flag, the United States flag that includes everybody. All right? See, that's inclusion, right? Division is when you divide everyone up. It's actually in what I'm saying, was when you divide people up into other boxes. Divide them up, division, get it? Yeah, when you divide them up into other boxes, that's division. And you have a separate flag. You got an LGBT flag for this guy, gay flag for this guy, straight flag for this guy, blah, 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 with their flags and flags and flags. That's called division. When you divide people up, that's called division. When you put them into one box, the American box, and we're all one race, the American race, yeah, and we have one flag, the United States flag, that's what inclusion is, because everyone's included. Get it?
If you raise your hand and say, well, wait a minute, I'm not for inclusivity, everybody's going to look at you and say, what are you, some sort of intolerant bigot? How could you not be for inclusivity? That's what we try and teach preschoolers, to be kind to other people on the playground, be inclusive.
It's not inclusivity.
See, again, to normal people like you or I, what inclusivity means is, hey guy, or hey girl, you're a nice person, you think differently than I, that's okay, we can still get along despite our differences. What inclusivity means now, to people that push these DEI ideals, is I live a certain way or believe certain things. And you need to be tolerant of that. And not only do you need to be tolerant of that, you need to celebrate it. And you need to celebrate me. And if not, it's because you're not inclusive and because you're bigoted. And that is a very, very different idea. That is not inclusive. That's authoritarian. And that is not what we should be going for, especially in a high-pressure environment like a firehouse. But why is all of this even a problem anyways? It's a problem because we're just now seeing it with everything that's going on in LA right now. You see these fires burning, a lot of people are talking about DEI and how it's caused a lot of problems, and it's going to be a hot button issue for the next, who knows, few weeks, few months, and then everybody's going to forget about it and it's going to go away. But this is something that has been going on for a very long time. In fact, I pulled up a bunch of different stuff.